One current event that I wanted to bring up today is the continual struggle to get more coverage for the DNC Fraud lawsuit. Now, by the way, I don't identify as a Democrat at all. I really don't. I was a member of the party briefly to vote for Sanders. The last Democrat that I thought that this is good is FDR in terms of lasting policies. Not saying that every Democrat since then has been absolute garbage, but in terms of a president, in terms of a person that I could say, yep, they had good policies and they lasted. They had good ideas and they lasted. That's it. Okay. Every Democratic president during my lifetime has been complete garbage in terms of what they've overall done with this country and to this country. And the same thing with every senator that I've seen that is identified as a Democrat. Sorry, all of the ones that I've seen during my life, they've all, especially the ones from my home state. Not to say that there might have been a couple that might have been okay from other places. Might have missed a couple, but from what I've seen, they're all trash. And that's where I agree with W. Signo, in terms of her channel and idea on Twitter, the same progressive. That's where I definitely agree with Tim Black as well. I identify with many viewpoints that I think, especially historically, would be considered Democrat, but I hate the Democratic Party. And oh, by the way, I hate the Republican Party too. And I'm not one much for the libertarians at this point, with what they've done of late, and who their funders are clearly. And I have some real issues with the Green Party as well. It's probably of any political party, it's the one that I have least issues with, Greens, in terms of anyone that's known, but again, I have differences, I have issues, it's mild. Libertarians, I have a few more issues than the Republicans and Democrats, complete piles of garbage at this point. And I am a complete in that regard, I'm a complete non-partisan, because I revile them pretty much all, in terms of both the main sides, and to a lesser degree, the parties that have less political power. And that's why I'm really wary when I push for overall change, the construct of, say, I want this party to take on leadership and it'll become great. No, I don't believe in partisan politics at all. I don't believe in the political party system having actual power at all in any way, shape, or form. So it's not something that I shoot for. But right now, the DNC Fraud lawsuit is important to me because of one of its promulgations of the construct of election integrity, and of its concept that if we're going to fund something, publicly funded, and by the way, the primaries are publicly funded, that's what I'm talking about here, then they must be conducted with impartiality. And so, yes, it's a bylaws thing to me. In fact, they have it written in their bylaws that they must be fair and impartial. But it's also, and the bigger thing to me, isn't the bylaws. It's the fact that these primaries are publicly taxpayer-funded processes. Okay? And therefore, the construct that they're setting court, we don't really think that we need to be impartial. We don't really think that we need to be fair. Then if that's the real story, then they need to give back all of the money that they've taken from the public. to fund their partisan garbage. Pack of lies. In addition to candidate and other monies, okay? It's just a matter of the fact that, again, I am speaking as someone that I don't really care in terms of if the Democratic Party exists or not at this point. I prefer not. But after this stunt, and oh, by the way, the Republicans did it once as well, and that's why, to one of their own, to a lesser degree in terms of election fraud. So, in a prior election. So, the fact is that we need to make and take as many legal steps towards ending election fraud and regaining election integrity as possible. And yes, I'm very much well aware of the concept of, that there are puppet masters behind the scenes that, to a pretty large degree, are really in control of things right now. But at the same time, if we can't even start to get those front puppets frontally accountable to us, then we'll never have a chance, at even starting. Because, again, there's two legs of fighting the deep state and fighting for control of our country and of our world. There's the one hand, we have to gain at least some control frontally over the front puppets, which is to say the elected, in theory elected officials, and that means election integrity, election fraud, and the DNC Fraud lawsuit. Right now, it means the getting the open source voting systems throughout the country, to replace the Diebold voting machines, and the ballot marking assistance devices, which have about a 30% error rate, which is to say, I have about, and this isn't before I even put in my ballot to be scanned by the optical scanner, I have about a little less than 1 in 3 chance that my ballot won't count, that it won't even be filled out correctly, and the machine won't even work correctly, just to fill out the machine, the ballot, my ballot, when I'm trying to cast my vote. And again, as a person with disabilities, where in terms of standing on a long line, I'm risking my back going out and therefore collapsing to the freaking ground already, just in terms of getting to use that ballot marking assistance device. Then when you put that on there on top of the roughly, again, 30% error rate, and then you get the fact that they're easily hackable, the optical scanning machines that could either delete my vote or flip it electronically, that's where I have huge issues. And of course you have, on top of that, and this is the mainstay of the DNC Fraud lawsuit, is you have the fact that candidates who are favored by the party can just come on into polling places and just drop in and say, and again, to me that's blatant fraud, because it's, I once worked as a polling inspector, and I know that it's against the law for a candidate or any representative to come closer than about 100 feet from a polling location. Well, guess what? Both Bill and Hillary did that. They came waltzed right in and shook hands with people and shut at least 2 or 3 polling stations down via that nonsense on primary days. That's already fraud. Never mind all of the, putting aside for the second, but it's in the back of my head, the revelations from WikiLeaks. It's blatant, fraud in terms of manipulating an election. And that's why, as someone that started to go with my folks to the polling stations when I was a toddler, as someone who by the age of 10 was able to give candidate summaries, including voting histories, because I was glued to C-SPAN as a little kid. I mean, it was C-SPAN, C-SPAN 2, and I was, later on, there was 2 channels. I think at this point there's 3 or 4 of them, but when I was growing up, it was just 1 or 2. And I'd watch all of it. And I'd watch all the political programs too, but mainly I love C-SPAN. You know, Brian Lamb and the folks there. And I really thought that this is, you know, I mean, again, I knew it was in some ways crooked, in some ways silly, in some ways just plain, what the heck is going on here? But I loved dealing with it. But some of that was before these new voting machines, that, well, not so new anymore, Diebold, where the election integrity issues multiplied because of them, were even in place. And so that's my issue, is that I grew up helping get petitions signed, and no, my parents are not at all activists. No. I mean, many times it would be me that would be the nudger to say, and in essence it would be them realizing that if they wanted me to do something, the carrot was, okay, I'll go, okay, we'll first go to vote and then we'll do that, and I'm gonna be like, okay, it was, as long as I know we're gonna vote first, we're gonna go to the polling place, then okay, I'll do that other thing for you. And because again, I really did believe in it. And I still believe that if we can once we can gain regaining election integrity, it's one of our best methods to help regain back our world. But we've got to make a concentrated effort to support things like, again, like election integrity activists. As soon as I move to Arizona, I've already learned about an election integrity group in there, and I'm, so with my car, I'll make sure that I'll be driving there and to and fro, because I really, wherever I go, I want to work on this. And really, Seth Rich died for our democracy, and he didn't, again, because he was frustrated. And so, covering and getting the Seth Rich murder solved is another huge issue to me, as I know it is to the Becks, in terms of who were doing the DNC Fraud lawsuit, the lawyers who were doing that. It's because I see them on Twitter, and that's how I assume that. It's not me trying to put words into their mouths. It's what I've seen them tweeting about. And we really need to work hard to keep the focus on those things, because there's a lot of other issues that are more a matter of just informing people. But this is something that's very actionable. And yes, don't get me wrong, there are other actionable things in terms of learning how to grow your own food and being sustainable at home. But in terms of group action, the election mess, that's a group action that is a public thing. And that's where human beings, as social creatures that we are, it's something that we really need to work on together. Shalom.